Walk two gardens with me, side by side in the same July. The first belongs to a careful modern man. It is weeded to bare dirt, sprayed on schedule, and quiet. You will not hear a bee in it by August. And every year, like clockwork, something wipes out a crop anyway. The beetles take the potatoes, the worms take the tomatoes, and he stands there with his empty sprayer, wondering how bugs keep beating chemistry. The second garden is my wife's. It is louder than a town meeting, bees in the borders, birds working the rows, toads under the rhubarb, and out of that riot of living things she puts up enough vegetables every fall to feed our family through the winter, with enough left over to sell at the roadside stand. Here is the number that explains both gardens, and almost nobody gardening today has ever heard it. Of all the insects that visit a vegetable patch, roughly 9 out of 10 do the garden no harm at all, and a good share of those are there to hunt the one that does. My name is Jonas, and I am Amish, and today I am going to walk you through our garden the way you would walk through a fortress, from the outer wall, through the ranks of defenders, down to the ground the whole thing stands on, and show you how the old folks kept the harvest without a single can of spray. Every defense is cheap or free, every one of them is working this very week in July, and they add up to something the spray can never buy, a garden that defends itself, year after year, better and better. And carry this question with you to the last row, because it is the one the modern world has exactly backwards. If you could kill every insect in your garden tonight, every single one, should you? You are sure you know? Hold it. The outer wall first, and the outer wall is a smell. Stand at the edge of our garden and the first thing you meet is a solid border of marigolds, gold and rust red, running the whole fence line like a painted hem. The town folk plant them for pretty. The old folks planted them for war. A thick marigold border wraps the beds in a bitter smell that confuses and turns half the flying trouble before it ever finds the cabbage, and down below, their roots quietly clear the soil of the little rootworms, nematodes, that make melons and tomatoes sulk. And woven in among them, nasturtiums, the round-leaved ones with the orange trumpets, but those are planted as a trick. Aphids love nasturtiums more than they love almost anything you actually want to keep. So the nasturtium is the decoy, the aphids pile onto it, the ladybugs come to the buffet, and your beans stand clean 20 steps away. One seed packet each, $2 a piece, planted once in May, and the wall rebuilds itself from saved seed every year after, free. Inside the wall, the rows themselves fight, because of the second old rule. Never give a pest a straight road. A modern garden is a monoculture in miniature, 50 feet of cabbage in a line, which to a cabbage-moth is an airport runway with landing lights. The old gardens were planted in a jumble that looks careless and is anything but. Onions in with the carrots, the onion smell blinds the carrot fly, the carrot smell confuses the onion pests, and the two crops share the same bed in peace. Basil crowded up against the tomatoes. Radishes tucked along the squash to draw the flea beetles onto leaves nobody will miss. Every strong smell breaks the scent road a pest follows, every mixed bed turns the runway into a maze, and the bug that cannot find dinner moves on to the neighbor who planted his cabbage in a parade line. It costs nothing. It is only a different way of holding the seed packet in your hand in May. Now the garrison, the defenders who live in, and they are the reason my wife's garden is so loud. Count what hunts for us, friend, because the old folks did not fight this war alone and neither should you. A single toad under a squash leaf eats up to 100 slugs, beetles and cutworms every night of the season, and all a toad asks is a shady damp spot, a clay pot on its side in the corner of a bed, half sunk in the dirt. That is the whole rent. A house wren raising a brood carries hundreds of caterpillars a day into one little box, a few boards, an afternoon with the children, nailed on a post at the garden edge. The ladybugs and the lacewings come free wherever there are flowers and no poison, and their larvae clear aphids faster than any soap. And under it all, the chickens, ours patrol the garden edges in spring and fall, and after harvest they go through the beds like a cleanup crew, scratching out every grub and beetle egg that plan to winter over. The sprayed garden kills this whole army along with the enemy, and then stands defenseless the day the next wave of pests flies in from down the road, which is exactly why it needs the truck to come back every 3 weeks. The old garden feeds its army, and the army works nights. But some years, something breaks through the wall and past the garrison, the potato beetles come heavy, or the cabbage worms bloom all at once in a wet June. The old folks had 2 answers for the breakthrough, and neither one is a poison. The first is the oldest tool of all, a walk at dawn with a bucket of soapy water. Beetles are slow and stupid in the cool of the morning. You knock them off the leaves into the bucket, eggs get crushed where you find them under the leaf, the orange clusters on the potatoes, the little white bullets under the cabbage leaves, and 15 quiet minutes over coffee, twice a week, holds even a bad year in check. My grandmother called it visiting the garden, and she never once in her long life called it a chore. And she earned the right to name it, because I watched her win the worst pest year anyone here remembers. The summer I was 9, the cabbage moths came through like a white blizzard. You could shake a row and the air filled with them. The neighbors sprayed twice a week and lost their cabbages anyway, because the spray killed the wasps and lacewings that hunt cabbage worms, and every fresh wave of moths landed on ground with no defenders left. My grandmother did 3 things. She walked her rows every single morning with her bucket, and she took us children along at a penny a worm. I earned enough that July for a knife I carry to this day. She let the dill and the wild carrot at the garden edge go to flower, because their little white umbrellas feed the tiny wasps whose whole business in life is laying eggs inside cabbage worms. And she draped her youngest cabbages with cheesecloth off the kitchen shelf, pinned under stones. The moth cannot lay on a leaf she cannot land on. She lost maybe 1 head in 10. The sprayers across the road plowed their rows under in August. 9 years old, and I had already seen the whole argument settled. The second answer is the ancient powder, diatomaceous earth, the crumbled dust of tiny fossil shells, ground fine as flour. To anything soft-bodied that crawls, slug, cutworm, squash-bug nymph, that powder is a field of broken glass. Choose the food-grade kind, and because the fine dust can irritate the lungs, keep it out of your face when you spread it. Used on the soil it stays well clear of your children, your dog, and your dinner. It is a mined mineral, not a manufactured chemical. A $6 bag rings the base of the plants that need guarding and lasts the season. One honest caution, because we keep bees and so should your conscience, the powder does not know a pest from a pollinator, so it goes on the soil and the stems in the evening after the bees have gone home, never dusted over open blossoms. Used the old way, it guards the ground floor and never touches the ones working the flowers upstairs. And since we are down at the ground floor, one word about the enemy that does his work while you sleep, because half the mysterious damage in any wet summer is slugs. If you find ragged holes and silver trails at dawn, the old kit beats him 3 ways for pennies. A ring of dry wood ash from the stove around the lettuce bed, a slug will not cross it while it stays dry, and the ash feeds the soil when the rain finally does wash it in. A shallow tin sunk to its rim and filled with an inch of cheap beer, the slugs march in from a yard around like it is a wedding, and they do not march out. My grandfather counted 40 in one tin after a rainy night. And simplest of all, the board trap. Lay a plank between the wet rows in the evening, and at sunrise flip it. The night shift will be sleeping under it in a row, right where the chickens can hold their morning court. No pellets, no poison near the food, and the toad keeps his supper safe. And beneath every row, the deepest defense of all, the one nobody sees, the soil itself. Here is what a lifetime in a garden teaches that no seed catalog will tell you: pests are cowards. They pile onto the weak plant, the stressed plant, the one starving in tired dirt, the same way wolves cut the lame deer from the herd. A tomato growing fat and easy in living soil full of compost shrugs off a level of chewing that would flatten its cousin in worn-out ground. So the old folks fed the dirt before they fed anything else. The manure pile turned and spread every fall. The compost worked in every spring, and they moved the crops every year in a slow dance around the beds. Potatoes never twice in the same ground, cabbage family walking one bed over each season, so that any pest that laid its winter eggs under this year's crop wakes up in spring under the wrong one, hungry, with its dinner planted 40 feet away. 3 or 4 years around the circle, and the ground itself breaks the pest's family line. Rotation costs nothing but a scrap of paper in the seed box, a little map of what stood where, and it is the difference between a garden that gets sicker every year and one that gets stronger. And the same scrap of paper holds the last quiet trick, dodging. Every pest has a calendar. The squash vine borer moth flies for a few weeks in early summer and then she is gone. The first flush of flea beetles is the hungriest one. The old folks did not fight those calendars, they stepped around them. A second planting of squash seeded in early July grows up after the borer moth has finished her flying and never meets her at all. The fall cabbages go in late and miss the worst of the moth blizzard. Radishes and spring greens are in and eaten before half their enemies wake up. Ask the oldest gardener at any market when she plants a thing, and the answer will sound like superstition and work like arithmetic, because it is arithmetic, written down across 50 summers in the back of a seed box. So now stand at the gate with me and answer the question you carried down the rows. If you could kill every insect in the garden tonight, should you? You already see it, it would be the worst thing you ever did to that ground. 9 of 10 were never your enemy, and the ones that hunt, the toad, the wren, the ladybug, the lacewing, they are your fence, your night watch, your unpaid help. Kill everything, and the pests come back first. They always come back first, they breed faster, and this time nothing is waiting for them. That is the treadmill the spray puts a garden on. Every pass wipes out the army with the enemy and buys 3 quiet weeks, and then you spray again, forever, while the man selling the can nods along. The old way is the opposite bet, and it is the whole answer in one line. Do not try to empty the garden, fill it. Fill it with smells that confuse, flowers that feed the hunters, houses for the toad and the wren, strong plants in living dirt and a jumble no pest can read. A full garden defends itself. An empty one is just a plate waiting for whoever flies in next. So here is your start, and it costs less than 1 can of spray. This evening, walk your rows slow and look under 10 leaves, just 10, and learn who is actually living there before you decide anyone needs killing. Set 1 clay pot on its side in the shadiest, dampest corner, half sunk. The toad will find it, they always do. And write $2 of marigold seed on the shopping list for next spring, because the wall goes up in May. Then come tell me in the comments, what is eating your garden this year? Describe the damage, the holes, the leaf, and I will do my best to name your enemy and the old fix for it. I read every word down there, and between all of us on this porch, I wager there is not a pest in the country we have not beaten at least once. The tomatoes will be coming in heavy soon, more than any family can eat fresh, and when they do, I will show you how we put a whole summer into jars for the winter. But that is canning talk, and it deserves its own evening. Until then, plant the wall, house the army, feed the dirt. The old ways still work.